Welcome. This is David Laws, Lsbf's lecturer in ACCA P3, the business analysis paper. We are working our way through 10 easy steps to passing an exam question, and we've now reached step 8. In step 8, we're going to do some numbers. Now, students don't like doing this. I don't quite know why, because if you ask most students why they are trained to be an accountant, they'll say, because I like numbers. Which papers do you like? I like financial reporting, it's got numbers. I like tax, it's got numbers. And so when they get numbers in P3, they suddenly say, actually, I don't like numbers anymore. I've changed my mind, I hate numbers. It's amazing how poor the numbers are in most P3 exams, how poorly they are done by students. So here is an excerpt from the June 2011 question 1, the one that we've been working the 10 steps on. So, part B, which is the bit we're looking at now, the potential manufacturer has quoted a production price, there are 112 production hours, weekly overhead cost of 35,000, transportation cost is 250, etc, etc. And you've also been told about 3 different cars, 3 different products, selling price, variable cost, and down at the bottom, production time. Right, one of the things that is obviously sensible to think about is, what does the examiner expect you to do with those numbers? One of the big differences between this paper and F papers is in the F papers, the examiner would say, do this, do that, calculate this. In P3, they simply say, there are some numbers. You work out what you're going to do with it. So, what can we calculate? We could look at, is there a limiting factor? I'm told about the fact there's 112 production hours. I'm told about the production time for each car. So that looks like a sensible calculation. Is there a limiting factor? If there is a limiting factor, I have got production time, I've got sales price, I've got variable cost, I can do contribution. I can do contribution per hour, so key factor analysis looks a possibility. And also, the question says, should they do any outsourcing? Well, I'm told about production costs, 3,500. As opposed to 4,500 that I've got at the moment. I'm told about overheads. So I reckon there's at least 3 different things I can calculate. First of all then, is there a limiting factor? There are 112 hours available for production. So the first question then is, if you could make everything that you want to sell, how many hours would it require? Well, you've got 3 cars. For each of them, you're told the demand per week and how many hours they take. And you can work out that you need 152 hours. You've only got 112, so therefore, there is a limiting factor. Fair enough. If there's a limiting factor, the most sensible thing now to do then is to say, right, which products should we make and which products should we not make? Probably when you did this in F5, you simply said, make this product and don't bother with that one. In this question, it will be make this product, that one, why don't we outsource it? Now, it's an exam question, and so there's probably something wrong with what they're doing. The question says, should they outsource the Eco-Light? So let's look at the numbers. You can see the selling price per car, the variable cost per car, the contribution per car. It looks like the Eco-Light is the one to outsource because it's got the lowest contribution. However, as you guys remember, from when you were doing key factor analysis, the important bit is not just what is the contribution, but also, and how long does this take to manufacture? Our limiting factor is hours, so how many hours does this require? So what you then end up with is contribution per hour. And if you do that, the Eco is best, the Eco-Light, the one they're looking at outsourcing, is actually second, the Eco Plus is actually the worst one. So the question says, should they outsource the Eco-Light? And the answer is, well, actually, maybe not. If you're going to outsource anything, you'd outsource the Eco Plus. Okay. Now, maybe we should outsource one of them. Maybe we should outsource neither of them. What should we do? We have a limiting factor. We've just seen that. If you're going to outsource the Eco Plus. There would be a couple of marks for doing each of these calculations. Now, what happens then if you don't do any outsourcing? You can see here we've got our current production. Our current production would be 9. Say that again. Our current production would be 6 ecos. Do that first because it was best. Then we would make 6 eco lights. We do it next because it's the second best. We would have 10 hours left. We would use that to make one of the eco pluses. So that's actually the best we can do. And if you notice what we end up with, our contribution is 35,987. The weekly overheads are 35,000. So we're making some money. Not very much, but we are making some. But that's not what they're thinking of doing. What they're thinking of doing is actually outsourcing the eco light. So what they would then do is they would make the eco, they would make the eco plus, but the eco light would be outsourced. So if you look at the eco light, I've now changed the numbers. I've put 3,500 in as my variable cost because we're going to get it outsourced and that's what they're going to charge. I've now put 250 in transportation cost because that's what we now have to spend. I would still outsource all my production. I can sell 6 a week, so I'd outsource 6 a week. My weekly overheads also go down. They go down to 33,500. Now just think about what the examiner has asked us to do. Lots of students got this wrong in the exam. The examiner is saying outsource the eco light. So to a certain extent, this final bit, the 6 times 3,249, is irrelevant for a minute. Let's look at the other 2 bits. The other 2 bits are the bits where we've got the factory, and the factory overheads are 33,500. If you do the total contribution, you get 33,000, which is less than the overheads. These 2 on their own, the eco and the eco plus, don't actually cover the overheads in the factory. So is it a good idea? Well, actually, no. What you do is you close the entire factory down and just do the outsourcing, which isn't necessarily going to be a good idea either. So eco and eco plus don't cover the overheads of that factory. So I would accept the eco light will make money, but the other 2 are actually losing you money. So look at what calculations you can do. Lots of students only did the bit in the middle. They did the key factor analysis, they didn't actually do anything else. And lots of students, unfortunately, got that wrong anyway. So be careful. So step 8, what numbers have been given and why do you think they're there? I think in that question, it's pretty obvious you've got to do the key factor analysis. I think that's okay. But why were you told about the weekly overhead? Many students didn't get that bit. They didn't realise that it actually wasn't worth keeping the factory open to make the eco and the eco plus. Basic management accounting is assumed, so don't make any stupid mistakes. I've been polite there and said silly mistakes. Lots of students said, we'll take the overheads, divide it by the number of cars, and that will tell us the overhead per car. The problem with that is if you make the eco light in the factory, or if you outsource the eco light, you get different numbers of cars that you're making. So you can't compare the 2 anyway. Lots of students make basic management accounting mistakes. Please don't.